The first 3 years that I came to Bisbee, I actually had a business license each year, and I still have them. And I was told originally that the business license would allow me to vend in the park. And so I always had my business license on display, and I guess maybe 3 or 4 times a year, and they would get a complaint, and they would come over, and they'd just say, license or not, doesn't matter, you got to go. We've got a complaint, you've got to pack it up. And after about the 3rd year, I contacted the ACLU of Arizona, and they told me to have the officer cite me, that without a citation I wouldn't have cause for action. And so Officer Swan cited me for illegally occupying a public space. And I think Judge Morales just dismissed it immediately. And it's been in front of the Supreme Court 3 times. And 3 times the Supreme Court has agreed that an artist has a right under the First Amendment, freedom of expression, to sell his art or display his art on any public property.
One of the reasons I think a lot of people come to Bisbee, and the reason I still love living here, is because we're very creative and artistic, and we have Robert to thank for some of that. He's done an excellent job since he's been in Bisbee, bringing this creativity and this beauty to the community. So I am going to ask our city attorney on Monday or Tuesday to help me do some research. I've asked Robert for some information, so he provided the Missoula example. I'm going to see if Missoula does have an ordinance so that we can see if that's something we want to do locally. And then we'll start working on that and bring that to the council. In other words, an ordinance that would allow, as Robert says, artists in Bisbee to sell their wares at different public spaces.
If you've been to court and the judge dismisses it, why is it still being pressed? Does it not filter back down to
a lot of smaller communities like Bisbee? They aren't aware that the Supreme Court has made these rulings.
But even on a local level, you obviously probably went to Bisbee Justice Court, I'm guessing.
Right.
And the left hand isn't talking to the right hand? I don't, like I say, where's the disconnect?
That's kind of what I had said this morning, that maybe when they have a roll call for the officers, they could just mention that, listen, it's been brought to our attention that an artist has a right to vend in public spaces as long as it's their own art. If you receive a call about an artist in the park, you need to respond, walk over, introduce yourself. I think most of the officers in this town could look at something and tell whether or not I've made it with my own hands, or if I've gone to quartzite and bought a bunch of beads and brought them down here and put them out. I think in general, most of these officers can look at something. I mean, it would be easy to pick something up and see a manufacturer's tag on that.
Most of it has, made in China or made in Mexico.
Yeah.
Made in China more than made in Mexico.
Did that help with your question? I'm like you.
Maybe it's more of a rhetorical question than anything else, because I don't know if anybody really has an answer to that. But I think that in a lot of cases is the crux of the problem.
Just a lack of communication, maybe, and information. And it could be that that's all we need, is to have the federal information available in a manner that we can distribute and talk about in town halls and in meetings, and have our community understand that perhaps we don't need an ordinance. Perhaps all we need is the understanding that you already have that right, if that's the case, and just talk to the community about it. And so when someone does make a phone call, the police department or a neighbor can say they're in the right, unless they're not complying with these, I don't want to call them regulations or rules, but stipulations, then there is no problem.
It's a First Amendment right, correct?
And I think in the sense that Robert was saying something that I think is very true. this is his livelihood, obviously, and it's the livelihood of a lot of artists, so they're not going to want not to follow the stipulations or not do the right thing because it affects them very directly.
There's a lot of impetus for self-regulation, and those are common sense safety
Exactly.
rules for the general public and
For them, too.
And for them
Yes,
too,
exactly.
yeah.
And we do police ourselves when we're over in that park. If I'm sitting there trying to make money so I can feed my, have rice and beans, which seems to be my diet lately, then if someone shows up and they're drunk and they're loud and all that, I'll give them a few minutes to see how long they're going to carry on. But sooner or later, I'm going to very compassionately and very politely say, listen, I'm trying to make a living here. And, you're going to have to go. I send them over to Gore Park. I really do. I say, go over to Gore Park, order and get crazy. But right now I'm trying to make enough money to buy some beans. But we do. We police ourselves. We really do. This is Moondragon, and I'm in Grassy Park in Bisbee, Arizona. I'm exercising my rights under the First Amendment, freedom of expression. The Supreme Court has ruled at least 3 times that an artist has the right to vend his own art without a permit, without a license, or without a tax ID number on public property. It has to be done in a civil manner. You can't block the sidewalk, you can't put up a table, you can't have extension cords. The Bisbee police have ran a couple of artists out of this park earlier in the week. They violated their civil rights, and I'm here to make a statement. If they show up today, I will insist that they cite me, and I will insist that they seize all of my product and give me a very detailed inventory, and then we'll go to court.